He went to wait for his last ride. But the Apache girl gave him a reason to live again. The twin suns were slowly sinking behind the red desert cliffs when the old cowboy reached the abandoned station. Long shadows stretched across the cracked ground, and warm wind carried dust through broken metal rails. The place had been silent for years. No travelers, no traders, only wind and memories. He stopped his hoverhorse near the rusted platform and climbed down slowly. His boots touched the ground with a tired sound. The man moved like someone who had walked too far for too long. His coat was old but strong, and a faded badge rested near his chest, almost hidden by time and dust. He looked around once, then nodded slightly to himself. This was the place. This was where he would wait. The last transport would pass tonight. A long-distance frontier carrier that stopped only once every year for maintenance checks. After tonight, the route would be closed forever. He planned to be on it. Not because he had a destination, but because he had nothing left behind. He walked toward a broken bench and sat quietly. The metal felt cold even in the desert heat. He removed his hat and rested it beside him, watching the sky slowly change colors. Orange turned to deep red, then purple. The cowboy had once been known across many colonies. Some people called him a lawkeeper, others called him stubborn. He had fought raiders, protected caravans, and saved lives during storms and attacks. But those days were gone. Technology replaced people like him. The frontier no longer needed old riders with simple rules. He had lost friends, lost purpose, lost the feeling that tomorrow mattered. So he came here, to wait for his last ride. The desert grew quiet as night approached. Small lights began to appear in the sky, satellites moving slowly above, distant ships crossing the stars. He closed his eyes for a moment. Memories came easily when he tried to rest. Faces from long ago, voices that no longer existed, promises he could not keep. Then he heard something, a sound that didn't belong to the wind, a faint cry. His eyes opened instantly. He remained still, listening carefully. There it was again, soft, weak. Someone was out there. He stayed seated for several seconds, fighting with himself. He didn't want to get involved. He had come here to be alone. Whatever happened in the desert wasn't his problem anymore, but old habits were hard to forget. Finally, he stood up with a quiet sigh. He picked up his rifle and walked slowly toward the rocky hills behind the station. His steps were careful, silent. The cry grew clearer as he moved closer. It was a human voice. He climbed over a ridge and stopped. A young woman lay on the ground near the stones. Her clothing was a mix of traditional patterns and modern travel gear. Dust covered her face, and one arm was wrapped badly with torn cloth stained dark. An Apache girl. She looked exhausted, barely conscious. The cowboy watched her quietly for a moment. He could walk away. He told himself that more than once. The transport would arrive soon. He had no reason to stop. But something inside him refused to move. He approached slowly and knelt beside her. "Hey," he said gently. Her eyes opened suddenly, sharp despite her weakness. She tried to pull away but winced from pain. "Easy," he said calmly. "You're safe." She stared at him carefully, unsure. "Why are you here?" she asked in a dry whisper. He paused. "Waiting," he answered simply. "For what?" He looked toward the station in the distance. "For my last ride." She frowned slightly, not understanding, but she was too tired to ask more. He checked her pulse, weak but steady. He opened his pack and pulled out clean bandages. With slow, careful movements, he began wrapping her injured arm properly. "You don't need to help me," she said quietly. "I know," he replied. Silence filled the space between them. The sky darkened further and cold air began to replace the heat of the day. "People are chasing me," she said after a moment. "They won't stop." He looked around instantly, eyes scanning the horizon. Tracks marked the sand. Multiple vehicles had passed through recently. Trouble was coming. He felt the familiar weight of decision pressing against him. He could still walk away. He could return to the station and board the transport. He had planned this for months, but leaving her here felt wrong. "Why are they after you?" he asked. She hesitated, then shook her head. "They want something I carry." He didn't push further. Instead, he helped her sit up slowly and gave her water. She drank carefully, eyes never leaving his face. "Why help me?" she asked again. He didn't answer immediately. He didn't know how to explain that helping others had once been his entire life. That even now, when he wanted to stop caring, he couldn't ignore someone in danger. "Because you're still breathing," he said finally. She watched him quietly, surprised by the simplicity of his answer. The wind shifted suddenly. Far away, faint engine sounds moved across the desert. The cowboy stood up instantly. His body changed, becoming alert and focused. Years of experience returned like an old friend. Lights appeared on the horizon, vehicles, fast. "They found you," he said calmly. Fear crossed her face. "You should leave," she whispered. "They are dangerous." He looked toward the station again. Soon the transport would arrive. This was his chance to disappear forever. Then he looked back at her. A long breath escaped him. Maybe he wasn't finished yet. Maybe this wasn't the end. He picked up his rifle and checked the energy level. "Well," he said quietly, voice steady, "guess my last ride can wait." The Apache girl stared at him, confused but relieved. The engines grew louder. The night became tense and alive. And for the first time in many years, purpose returned to the cowboy's eyes as he prepared to stand between danger and someone who needed him. The sound of engines rolled across the desert like distant thunder. Dust rose in the air as three dark vehicles moved quickly toward the abandoned station. Their lights cut through the growing darkness, sharp and cold. The cowboy stood still, watching carefully. His rifle rested easily in his hands, but his mind worked faster than his body. He counted the vehicles, guessed their speed, and searched for possible escape paths. The Apache girl sat behind him near the rocks, breathing slowly to control her pain. "They are close," she said quietly. "I know," he replied without turning. The wind shifted again, carrying the smell of burning fuel and metal. Whoever chased her had good machines, not simple desert scavengers. That meant trouble. "Can you stand?" he asked. She tried slowly, using the rock for support. Her legs shook but held. "Good," he said. "Stay behind me," she nodded. The vehicles slowed near the station, engines humming like restless animals. Four figures stepped out, wearing dark armor designed for frontier combat. Their helmets reflected the faint starlight. The cowboy felt a familiar calm settle inside him. Years ago, he had faced men like this many times. The feeling of danger no longer frightened him. It simply made him focus. One of the armored figures moved forward. "We know you're out there," the stranger called through a voice amplifier. "Hand over the girl and you walk away." The cowboy didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped into the open where they could see him clearly. "I don't think she wants to go with you," he said calmly. The armored figure paused, surprised by his calm tone. "This is not your problem, old man," the stranger said. "Leave now." The cowboy tilted his head slightly. "That's the thing," he replied. "It became my problem the moment you started chasing someone who couldn't defend herself." Behind him, the Apache girl watched quietly. She studied the cowboy with growing curiosity. He didn't look like someone who wanted a fight, yet he stood there without fear. Another armored figure stepped forward impatiently. "Enough talking," he said. "Take him down." The cowboy moved before the words fully ended. He fired once, not to harm, but to strike the ground near their feet. Dust exploded upward, forcing them to step back. "Let's slow this down," he said firmly. "No one needs to get hurt." The group hesitated. They had expected resistance, but not someone calm enough to control the situation. "What do you want?" the leader asked. "Simple," the cowboy answered. "Turn around and leave." "That is not happening." Silence stretched between them. The cowboy knew this would not end peacefully. He glanced quickly at the Apache girl. "Move toward the station slowly," he said under his breath. She nodded and began moving carefully. The leader noticed. "Stop her," he ordered. Two armored figures rushed forward. The cowboy fired again, this time hitting a nearby metal beam. Sparks flew, forcing them to stop and take cover. The desert echoed with tension. "You're making a mistake," the leader said coldly. "Maybe," the cowboy replied, "but it's mine to make." For several seconds, neither side moved. The night felt heavy, filled with waiting. Then suddenly, the cowboy grabbed a small device from his belt and activated it. A bright flare shot into the sky, lighting the desert in silver light. The attackers hesitated, confused. "It's not a weapon," the cowboy said calmly. "Just a signal. The transport will arrive soon. You don't want witnesses." The leader's posture changed slightly. Clearly, they preferred secrecy. "You cannot protect her forever," the leader said. "I don't need forever," the cowboy answered. "Just tonight." The standoff continued, tension thick in the air. Finally, the leader raised a hand. The armored figures stepped back toward their vehicles. "This is not finished," he said quietly. "I didn't expect it to be," the cowboy replied. The engines roared again as the vehicles turned and disappeared into the darkness. The desert grew silent once more. The cowboy lowered his rifle slowly. Behind him, the Apache girl released a breath she had been holding. "You scared them," she said. He shook his head. "No," he replied, "just delayed them." She moved closer, studying his face carefully. "Why risk yourself for someone you just met?" He didn't answer right away, because he didn't fully understand himself. Maybe he was tired of running away. Maybe helping her gave him something he thought he lost forever. He sat down on a rock, suddenly aware of his own exhaustion. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated before answering. "Ayana," he nodded. "Well, Ayana, whoever they are, they will come back, and next time they won't talk first." She looked toward the horizon where the vehicles had vanished. "They want something I carry," she said quietly, "something important to my people." "What is it?" She touched a small pendant hidden under her clothing. It glowed faintly with soft blue light, not bright, not dangerous, just alive. "It is a key," she said, "a map to something sacred." The cowboy studied the pendant but didn't ask more questions. Far away, a deep humming sound filled the sky. The transport. A massive shadow appeared among the stars, slowly descending toward the station. The cowboy felt his chest tighten. This was the ride he had planned to take, his escape, his ending. He looked at the ship, then at Ayana. "You can still leave," she said gently. "You have done enough." He remained silent. For years, he had waited for a moment like this, a chance to disappear. But now, standing beside someone who needed him, leaving felt wrong. The transport's lights illuminated the desert as it approached. He exhaled slowly. "Funny thing," he said quietly, "I came here to stop living." Ayana watched him carefully. "And now?" she asked. He looked toward the darkness where the hunters would return. "Now," he said, "I think I've got one more ride left in me." The transport landed with a powerful rush of air, shaking the ground beneath their feet, and the cowboy realized that tonight was not the end. It was the beginning of something he never expected. The massive transport ship settled slowly onto the desert ground, its engines sending waves of dust across the abandoned station. Light from the ship spilled over the rocks, turning the dark desert silver. The cowboy stood still, watching it carefully. The sound of the engines felt heavy in his chest, almost like a heartbeat. This was the ride he had planned to take, the escape he had prepared for, but now everything felt different. Lana stood beside him, her eyes reflecting the ship's light. She looked small compared to the giant machine, yet there was quiet strength in the way she held herself. "Will you go?" she asked gently. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he watched the ramp slowly lower from the ship. A few crew members appeared at the entrance, scanning the area with calm professionalism. He could walk there now, board the ship, leave the frontier behind forever. It would be easy, too easy. He turned toward Ayana. "What happens if I leave?" he asked. She hesitated, searching for the right words. "I will keep running," she said honestly, "until they catch me or until I reach my people." The cowboy nodded slowly. He already knew the answer. The hunters would return stronger, better prepared. She would not survive alone. He looked back at the transport once more, then he stepped away from it. "I guess I'm not ready to leave yet," he said quietly. Yana's expression softened with relief, though she tried not to show it too much. The transport crew waited for several minutes, then raised the ramp again when no passenger approached. Soon the ship lifted back into the sky, leaving behind only fading light and silence. The cowboy watched until it disappeared among the stars. For a moment, sadness touched his face. Then he turned back toward the present. "All right," he said, voice firm again. "Now we move." "Where?" Yana asked. "Somewhere they won't expect." They walked away from the station, heading toward a narrow canyon hidden between tall red cliffs. The cowboy moved carefully, checking the ground for signs of danger. Yana followed, trying to match his steady pace despite her injury. After some time, they reached a small cave entrance partially hidden by rocks. "This will do for now," he said. Inside, the cave offered shelter from the cold wind. The cowboy built a small fire using a portable heat unit, casting warm light across the walls. Yana sat down slowly, finally allowing herself to relax slightly. "You fight like someone who has done this many times," she said. He shrugged lightly. "Long time ago?" "What changed?" He stared at the fire for a moment. "People stopped needing me," he said simply. She watched him carefully but didn't push further. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, just quiet. After some time, Ayana removed the pendant from around her neck. The small object glowed softly, its light steady and calm. The cowboy leaned forward slightly. "That's what they want." "Yes," she said. "What is it really?" She took a deep breath. My people protect something ancient, she began. Not a weapon, not treasure, it is knowledge, a place hidden from outsiders, a place that holds the history of many worlds. The cowboy listened quietly. This pendant is a key, she continued. It shows the path to that place. Only those chosen by my tribe can carry it. And the hunters, they want control, she said. They believe the hidden place contains power that can change the frontier. The cowboy nodded slowly. That made sense. People always chased power even when it destroyed them. Why you? He asked. She smiled slightly, though sadness touched her eyes. I did not choose this. The elders trusted me. They said I was strong enough. He studied her face. They were right. She looked surprised by his confidence. Outside, the wind grew stronger, moving across the canyon like a distant song. Rest, he said. We leave before sunrise. She nodded and closed her eyes. The cowboy remained awake, sitting near the entrance. His rifle rested across his knees as he watched the dark horizon. He knew the hunters would return. They were too organized to give up easily. Hours passed quietly. Just before dawn, he heard something, a faint mechanical hum. He stood instantly, vehicles closer than before. They found us, he whispered. Anna woke immediately, sensing the tension. How? She asked. He checked the cave entrance, scanning the sky. Tracking drones, he said. They learned from last time. Red lights appeared between the cliffs as machines approached slowly. The cowboy helped Iana stand. We move now. They exited through a narrow path behind the cave, moving quickly along a hidden trail. The canyon twisted in different directions, offering many possible routes. Behind them, the sound of engines echoed louder. They're faster this time, Iana said. I know, he replied calmly. They reached a high ridge overlooking the desert. The sun began to rise, painting the sky gold. The cowboy stopped briefly. This way leads to open ground, he said. Harder to hide. And the other way. He pointed toward a rocky valley. Dangerous terrain, he said, but harder to follow. She met his eyes. Then we take the dangerous path. A small smile appeared on his face. Good choice. They moved into the valley just as the first hunter vehicle appeared behind them. The chase had begun. The cowboy felt something shift inside him. The tired man who came to the station to end his journey felt far away now. Every step forward reminded him of who he used to be, someone who protected others no matter the cost. As they ran together across the rising desert light, he realized something unexpected. He wasn't just helping her survive. She was giving him a reason to live again. The sun climbed slowly over the desert, turning the rocks gold and red. Heat began to rise from the ground, and long shadows disappeared under the growing light. The cowboy and Iana moved carefully through the rocky valley, their steps steady but urgent. Behind them, the sound of engines echoed between the cliffs. The hunters were close. The cowboy stopped near a narrow ridge and looked back. 3 vehicles followed their trail, moving faster than before. Small drones hovered above, scanning the ground like searching eyes. They are not giving up, Iana said quietly. No, he replied. People chasing power never do. He studied the terrain ahead. The valley opened into a wide plain filled with tall stone pillars shaped by ancient winds. It offered some cover, but not enough for a long fight. We need a plan, he said. Iana touched the glowing pendant around her neck. Its blue light had grown brighter since morning. We are close, she said. The hidden place is near. He raised an eyebrow slightly. That thing guides you? She nodded. Yes, the closer we get, the stronger it becomes. The cowboy looked toward the distant horizon where the desert stretched endlessly. Somewhere ahead was the place she had risked everything to protect. Then we keep moving, he said. They continued forward, weaving between stone pillars while the engines behind them grew louder. Dust rose as the hunter vehicles pushed through rough terrain, refusing to slow down. Suddenly, one of the drones flew low above them, scanning with a red beam. The cowboy reacted instantly. He lifted his rifle and fired once. The drone sparked and crashed into the sand. They know exactly where we are now, he said calmly. Anna's eyes showed concern but also determination. I will not let them take the key, she said. He nodded. And I won't let them take you. They reached the center of the stone field where a massive rock formation stood like a natural tower. The pendant in Anna's hand began to glow brighter, sending soft waves of blue light across the ground. This is it, she whispered. The cowboy looked around carefully. I don't see anything. Wait, she said gently. She stepped forward and placed the pendant against a smooth section of the rock. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground vibrated slightly. Lines of light appeared across the rock surface, forming patterns that moved like flowing water. Slowly, a hidden doorway revealed itself, opening silently into darkness. The cowboy watched with quiet surprise. "Well," he said softly, "that's something." Ayana turned toward him. "This place holds knowledge older than the frontier itself," she said. "Once inside, they cannot follow unless the door opens for them." "That sounds good to me," he replied, but before they could move, the roar of engines filled the air. The hunter vehicles arrived, stopping in a wide circle around them. Armed figures stepped out quickly, weapons raised. The leader removed his helmet, revealing a calm but cold expression. "You have nowhere left to run," he said. The cowboy stepped forward slightly, placing himself between the hunters and Ayana. "That's where you're wrong," he replied. The leader glanced at the glowing doorway behind them, eyes filled with interest. "So it is real," he said quietly. "The stories were true." "You're not going inside," Ayana said firmly. The leader smiled faintly. "Oh, I think we are." The cowboy raised his rifle slowly. "Not today." The tension thickened. The leader raised a hand, signaling his team, "Take them." The hunters moved forward. The cowboy reacted instantly. He fired at the ground near their feet, forcing them to scatter for cover. Dust exploded into the air, turning the battlefield into chaos. He moved quickly, guiding Ayana toward the open doorway. "Go," he said. "I'll hold them." She hesitated. "I will not leave you." He looked at her, eyes calm but firm. "You gave me a reason to live again," he said softly. "Now let me do what I do best." Her expression filled with emotion, but she nodded slowly. The hunters advanced again, firing energy bursts that struck the rocks around them. The cowboy moved with surprising speed, using the pillars for cover, returning fire carefully to keep them back without causing unnecessary harm. Years of experience guided every movement. The leader stepped forward angrily. "You cannot win alone," he shouted. The cowboy smiled slightly. "I'm not trying to win," he replied, "just buying time." Ayana reached the doorway but turned back one last time. "Come with me," she called. He looked at her, then at today's rising sun. For a moment, the old sadness returned, the memory of coming here to end his journey. But now he understood something different. Life wasn't about escaping pain. It was about choosing a reason to stand. He moved quickly toward her as the doorway began to close. Together, they stepped inside. The rock sealed behind them, leaving the hunters outside in silence. Inside, soft blue light filled a vast chamber carved into the heart of the mountain. Symbols covered the walls, glowing gently like living stars. The cowboy lowered his rifle slowly. "Looks like you made it," he said. Ayana smiled warmly. "We made it." He exhaled deeply, feeling something he had not felt for years, peace. She walked beside him, her voice gentle. "You came here to wait for your last ride," she said. "But now," he looked around the hidden place, then back at her. "Now," he said quietly, "I think I just started a new journey." Outside, the desert continued as always, wind moving across endless sand. But inside the hidden sanctuary, the cowboy found something stronger than escape. He found purpose again, and for the first time in a long while, he was not waiting for an ending. He was ready for whatever came next.